and our surrounding communities. At the Noble Public Schools Foundation, we are committed to supporting education and building a stronger future for our students and community. Tonight's event reflects our mission to engage citizens and leaders in meaningful dialogue. We'd like to thank the candidates for participating, and we encourage everyone to stay engaged, ask questions, and be informed voters as we approach the election. To our viewers in the audience and watching at home, thank you for being here tonight, and let's get started. I want to introduce to you our moderator for tonight, Randy Kersey. Mr. Kersey is a proud second-generation Noble Public Schools graduate and a past president of the Noble Public Schools Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Kersey.
Thank you, and good evening to everybody. Good evening to our candidates. Thanks to the Noble Public School Foundation for hosting this event. Thanks again to our candidates for being here tonight, and thanks to those of you who are watching here in person as well as at home. We're going to start tonight with Senate District 15 and then move on to House District 20. So in an effort to preserve as much time as possible for questions, we're going to go over a few ground rules and then move into the candidate introductions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to introduce yourselves. We will then proceed directly to the question and answer portion of the forum. All questions were submitted by constituents. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We're going to try to adhere to strict time limits so that we can get as many questions out as we possibly can. This forum is designed to encourage respectful, informative discussion. Please refrain from personal attacks. Focus on the issues. We expect a tone of civility and professionalism throughout the event. Thank you again for participating. We look forward to a productive and informative forum. So tonight we have, on the Democrat side, Elizabeth Foreman. So welcome to Elizabeth, and Lisa Standridge, the Republican side. So Elizabeth, you want to start out with your 60-second introduction?
I sure will. Oh, can you all hear me? I assume you can. Okay, well, I'm Elizabeth Foreman. I am a 2001 Noble High School graduate. I have a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Oklahoma and a doctorate from Southern Nazarene University. My area of study is public policy. I work currently as a CFO for a nonprofit that helps community health centers expand healthcare to rural and underserved Oklahomans. Prior to that, I was a finance director at a police department for nearly a decade. I also served on the Norman City Council from July 2020 to July 2024. I came on City Council in Norman at a really difficult time, but I'm really proud of the work and everything that I was able to accomplish while I was there, and I believe I served my constituents well. I'm running for state senate because I believe that Oklahomans are sick of politicians politicking. We have people in the Capitol who are more concerned about serving themselves, and really, that's 60 seconds, I'm sorry, was it? I'm sorry, okay. Who are more concerned about serving themselves and their friends than serving their constituents. And so I believe I'm qualified for this role, not just because of my academic and professional experience, but because I am Senate District 15. I grew up in Noble. I've spent my adult life living in Norman. I've dealt with the burden of the same bad policies that you have, and I understand your concerns, and I look forward for you all getting to know me better tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, and Lisa Standridge, would you care to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much to the foundation, and thank you all for being here tonight. I come to you today as a product of Noble Public Schools. I was welcomed to Catherine I. Daly Elementary School by Miss Daly herself, and I have very fond memories of her. As a fourth grader, I was baptized at First Baptist Church in Norman, and later in high school, I got a job working after school with my brother Lance at Noble Pharmacy, and it was there that I decided to pursue pharmacy as a profession. One day, a cute little intern walked in, and we got married, and now we have 2 pharmacies. So I am forever grateful to my family who encouraged me to go get that pharmacy degree. But I am also grateful to the education that I had received here at Noble Public Schools that allowed me to go and do that. So the takeaway message about me is that I have a big place in my heart with Noble written all over it, and I am very excited to have the opportunity to represent Noble in our state senate.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, let's get into the questions, and what we're going to do is we'll start, Elizabeth, you'll be the first to answer the first question, and then we'll alternate who goes first and who goes second. So the first question is a two-part question. Partisan politics are very prominent in today's political environment. How can constituents who do not share your political affiliation be assured that you will represent their interest if elected? And what actions would you take to connect with your constituents and thoroughly understand their viewpoints before making decisions on divisive issues?
Okay, I love this question and I appreciate it so much. So as a city council member, I joined in July of 2020, like I said, and 3 weeks before that, the Norman City Council defunded the police. And that was a very divisive time for the city of Norman. It ripped us in two. There were a lot of recalls, and it was very disruptive to trying to get business done within the city. And so any votes that had to do with police were very, very contentious. And when it came to refunding the police, I refunded the police. We had to re-adopt that budget that defunded them, and I voted against it, knowing that my party would not like it, but listening to my constituents and what they wanted. And then in November of 2023, we had the vote for the Bearcat for the city of Norman, and my party would not want me to approve it. And I was the swing vote because 3 weeks prior to that vote, my ward needed a Bearcat. We had a situation where someone was shooting into homes and public safety came first. And I listened to my constituents, and I know that within my own party it was not popular, but public safety and protecting the residents was doing the right thing. So I'm able to point to 4 years of public service where I have not towed a party line, but listened to my constituents. I opened myself up to them. Talk to me, let's have these conversations. I held meetings with them, forums. We discussed all of these concerns, and I listened to constituents over party.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Lisa, would you like me to repeat the question? It was kind of a long one, or
I've
you're
got
good to
it. Yes, I'm good to go.
go? Okay.
I am absolutely excited to represent any constituent that comes to me. I am a good listener, and what makes me a good listener is because I'm a pharmacist. I'm an employer. I listen to my employees. I listen to patients. One of my jobs is to counsel patients on medications that they receive, so I have to ask a lot of questions, and I have to interpret those answers, and so I can better understand them. So I'm a good listener inherently. I'm approachable. I am not somebody that is going to say, hey, it's my way or the highway. I understand that there's two sides to every coin, and I like to investigate that. That's why I like to surround myself with people that know both points of view. So I think that also is a way that you can trust me to legislate for you. Also, I want you to understand one thing about me, and that is that I am a Republican, but I am running for the state of Oklahoma. And before I cast a vote or make a decision on any kind of issue, I want you to know that I'm going to ask myself, is this what's best for the state, not for party? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the second question, a two-part question. Lisa, you'll go first this time. This is also a two-part question. What long-term effects do you think the increased use of emergency certified teachers could have on the quality of education in our schools? And what steps should the state take to reduce the reliance on emergency certifications while still addressing teacher shortages?
Thank you. Well, unfortunately, I believe there is a place for the emergency certifications. We're looking at a teacher shortage. We have to do what we have to do. But let me tell you about how I think that we can keep the good teachers that we have, because I am impressed with the wonderful teachers that we have here in Cleveland County, and I'll go further to say that I think they're the very best in the state. But we have to keep them from burning out, and I think the way to do that is with merit pay. I, again, have employees, and if you have a perfect employee who is on time, a go-getter, they're gonna do stuff on their own, nothing's gonna burn them out and make them feel less of what they are than paying a person who's quietly quitting the same amount. So I believe that if we can pay teachers based on their merit, based on their job performance, that's what's done in the private sector, I think that we can see an improvement in our schools.
Thank you. Elizabeth, same question.
So before I get into what to do, I want to not undermine the work that our emergency certified teachers are doing. I know a lot of them, and they are very passionate about their students, and they work very hard, and they love it. And so I'm thankful that we have the opportunity to be able to put people into schools to do that. But what we need to do to address the shortage of people going and getting an education in public schools, education, is we need to pay them appropriately. For some reason in the state of Oklahoma, whenever in the last 20 years, we've had 9 budget revenue failures. And the first thing that gets cut every single time is education. And there's no room for teacher pay. There's no room for funding classrooms and providing these things. We are the 5th hungriest in the nation of children, and we're not feeding them, we're not providing for them. My sister has been a teacher for over 20 years, and she will buy school lunch to send home to some of her students because she knows they won't get a meal that night. We need to fund our public schools. When these teachers have to take on mom, dad, counselor, teacher, all sorts of additional roles in their function, and you're not paying them and appreciating them and helping them in any way, they're not going to keep coming. So we need to address the issue at the root cause, and we need to start funding education properly.
Okay, thank you. Kind of a related question. This August, the Wall Street Journal published an article on teacher burnout and turnover that cited a Rand Corporation study that concluded that only 42% of teachers feel the stress of the job is worth it, compared to 70% who felt the stress of the job was worth it as recently as 2018. There were many factors, including pay, which you've both addressed, but overwhelmingly, the number one factor was managing student behavior. What can and should the legislature do about this? And it is Elizabeth's turn first.
So my brother is a behavioral specialist for Norman Public Schools, and he bears the brunt of a lot of these behaviors. What we're not doing is putting trained counselors in these schools to help them. We, in the state of Oklahoma, have passed a bill that pastors can go to schools and they can talk to students, and that's great and wonderful, and as a Christian, that's nice, but that's not addressing the real issues. These children have issues at home that they're bringing to school, and they need a trained person, counselors. We need to fill the schools with counselors to help speak to them. And then we need them to help bridge that gap with the parents, because a lot of the times the parents that have children who have behavioral issues are burned out themselves, and they're exhausted and they're tired, and they don't connect with the teacher very well to discuss these issues. And so we need to help provide the support in the classrooms and at the schools that they need to try to mitigate these behaviors.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. Definitely, I have heard that on the doorstep, and there are a lot of teachers that have left the profession because of that, and that's a shame. I think that maybe the legislature could back up schools and the administrations of school boards that, frankly, discipline these children, that expel them or suspend them if they do not have the mindset to sit in class and learn and keep other children from learning. Then perhaps they need to be in a different school, and perhaps that's where school choice comes in. So perhaps the legislature can step in there and back those schools up when some corrective measures are needed.
Okay. What is your stance on raising wages for school support staff, and how do you believe their compensation impacts the overall learning environment? Lisa, I believe you're first this time.
Well, again, I go back to merit pay. You need to reward employees that do a good job, and you cannot keep good employees and keep things rolling when you see people that have quietly quit or, are not doing the job that they should be doing. So I think merit pay, again, could remedy the situation.
Okay. Elizabeth?
So again, we've become incredibly dependent on our public school teachers to take on multiple roles, and we really saw that in the face of COVID, right? When they weren't going to school, all of these deficiencies that were happening in home life because they're meant to be babysitters, therapists, this is where they get food, etc. There's a lot of issues. Again, my sister's a public school teacher, and she had a student who was sexually assaulted by a mother's boyfriend, and he had to take medication for a disease that he caught from this every single day, and she had to help make sure he took it. This weighs heavily on teachers and the responsibilities that they have to take on. We have to adequately fund them, and we also need to provide employer assistance programs to them because they need help too. It is heavy to wear that crown and be responsible for so many children, knowing that when they're with you, they're safe, and when they're gone, you worry about them. We need to make sure that these teachers have access to healthcare needs also, in addition to extra pay.
Okay. I think the question was a little bit more about support staff in that. Would you like to, I'm assuming there's some time left. Yeah.
I believe the same would apply to support staff as well. I mean, in the classrooms, in the administration, everyone in that school building, this touches this child's life, and they all feel the weight of the responsibility of what they're doing. So in addition to raising teachers, support staff, counseling for them as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. And Elizabeth, you're first on this one. According to the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education, in 2022 high school indicators report only 34.8% of Oklahoma high school graduates pursued college. Given the significant number of graduates not continuing their education at college, what measures would you take to support trade-centered and vocational education opportunities for Oklahomans after high school?
Well, I think those programs are amazing. When I went to high school, there was a program with the VOTEC that students were able to go to and attend, and they can become nurses, or they could learn a trade, plumbing, electrical, that type of thing. And college is not meant for everyone. We've become a society where having a bachelor's is simply not enough. You need higher education, and you need more. And so I think these trades that we've kind of forgotten about in my generation as a millennial, we just sort of overlooked them, are becoming more and more important, and they're more essential and vital. And I think a lot of cooperation and programs connecting the VOTECs with the public schools is incredible. I'm also adjunct faculty at OCCC, and half of my students are high schoolers. And I think it's amazing that they're able to get an associate's by the time they graduate high school. We need to be funneling all education opportunities that we can to our high schoolers so that they can become, very effective citizens within our society. The more educated, the better they do, the more money in their pockets, the more money they're putting back into the economy. Investing in our children is going to output a better economy for our state.
Thank you. Lisa, same question.
Well, actually, I think in imparting the career tech in public schools is one of the things that public education is doing right. And I think that is something that needs to continue. These children have amazing opportunities with them in high school now, and the amount of opportunity that is available to high school kids right now is just mind-blowing. They can get a jump start on college, graduate, ready to go, ready to be employed, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I would like to see even more programs added to the career techs. The Aviation Academy that Norman North has is absolutely second to none, and I would like to see things like that continue.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is also a two-part. Number one, how would you advocate for transparency in government to ensure that constituents can effectively monitor the performance of their elected officials? And what steps would you take if you believe that an elected official is not fulfilling their responsibilities to their constituents? And I believe you're first, Lisa.
Well, obviously, if you feel that your elected official is not representing you or living up to the standards that you have the power in the vote. And as far as being transparent in what's done, votes are public knowledge. You can get online and see the votes to any issue. You can also call that legislator and let them know what you're thinking, what your ideas are, what your objections might be. So I feel that it is pretty transparent right now. I feel that legislators should open themselves up to the community, phone, internet, website, things like that. Town halls like this are fantastic to find out where your legislature stands on issues. So I think that the definition of transparency is different for everyone, and if the level you want is basically up to you.
I'm gonna follow up with a question here related to that in regards to transparency. What about campaign finance? Yeah.
Campaign finance, there is a form of transparency now. You can get online, you can see who's donating to who, but right now in Oklahoma there is a force called dark money, and I know you've all heard about it. We need to, as voters, understand that there are individuals behind that, and I would love to create legislation to be able to make that a transparent process.
Okay, thank you. So Elizabeth, same question. We'll give you a little more time too, since I added a third part.
Absolutely. So as a council member, I was the first council member to always come forward and talk directly about things that were happening. I was alerting the public to things that were happening. Get ready, this is coming. If you don't like this, here's all of our emails. Here are our phone numbers. Call and text us. And when people would have specific questions, I would say, well, if you want to do a FOIA request and look at the records, these are the words to ask for, and these are the words that you need, and you'll get exactly what you want. I always encourage the public to seek transparency. As an elected official, I can't hold a colleague responsible. If they're not living up to being transparent, there's nothing I can do. We could always censure a fellow elected official if they were doing something inappropriate, but as far as that goes, all I could do is just call out bad behavior and encourage people to contact them. And they could always go to the Attorney General for transparency, because he really values that, and I appreciate that. And as far as campaign finance, I'm a really odd one when it comes to campaign finance. I don't ask for a lot of money. I don't want a lot of money. I just need enough money to do the things that I need to do. And so I'm very transparent about that. And I even turn off my donation link once I have enough, because I don't want people to think that I'm bought and paid for. I just need the money that I need for the resources that I have. I'm completely transparent. It is mostly friends and family who are supporting me, and not groups. And as my opponent mentioned, we do have dark money issues. PACs have to register and they have to report, but super PACs do not. So putting in some legislation that would maybe cap their limits and what they can and can't do would probably be a good start on transparency with that.
Okay, thank you. So, Elizabeth, you're first on this one. How do you ensure that homeowners of older properties, some of which may have been paid off for decades, receive fair market value when their homes are taken through eminent domain, especially considering potential historical or sentimental value?
So I imagine this is probably relating to the Turnpike.
It didn't say that, but I'm guessing so.
I'm going to imagine it's with the Turnpike. Well, first of all, we're not going to let that happen. If you're not familiar with Pike Off OTA and the amazing work that they've done and that we've been doing, it's incredible. And I found out about this when everyone else did in February of 2022 when I was on city council, and it was very stunning. And it's something that my mom has had to think about. She's a 73-year-old widow, and she lives off of 72nd and McGuire. She is in line for the Turnpike. What does she do? I can tell you as a council member, we have had to do eminent domain on certain properties. And we've always been very, very fair with people doing that. I have not seen when people have sold their properties to the Turnpike that have come and spoken about it in meetings that the Turnpike Authority has been as fair. So I am going to be an optimist and hope that we don't get to that eminent domain process. I'm going to hope that the legislator can kind of step in, because this is a for-profit organization, and they should not have access to the legal rights that the state and local governments have of eminent domain to begin with.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, same question.
Well, I want you to know that I am always going to stand with the taxpayer. And there are absolutely no guardrails right now on the OTA as far as what they pay. I understand from the Pike-Off movement that if you can retain a lawyer, that you receive a higher payment for your land, and that's just absolutely horrible. I would like to put some guardrails on the OTA. I've spoke with the Pike-Off group. They have a good bill that I think that I can likely get heard. As a majority party, I think that that would likely get heard. So it's a nonpartisan issue, but you have to look at that and keep that into consideration. As far as the Pike-Off movement goes, I am in awe of the work that they've done. These are patriots, and any landowners in Oklahoma should probably write them a thank you note, because what they are doing is safeguarding you in the wake of another turnpike. So again, I will always stand with the taxpayer and the homeowner.
Thank you. Okay. The next question, and Lisa, you're first on this one. What is your position, this is maybe a little repetitive, what is your position on the original promise that Oklahoma turnpikes would be returned to the state after their bonds were paid off, and how do you plan to address that issue? And if elected, would you support legislative efforts to reevaluate the status of Oklahoma's turnpikes and ensure that the original agreement was honored?
Absolutely. That also goes back to the transparency that we talked about earlier. As I said before, the OTA has no guardrails. They're still charging tolls on roads that they told us that they weren't going to charge tolls on. They need some oversight, or they need a complete overhaul, and I'm not afraid to do that. I'm very prepared to go in there and do that. And as a representative of the majority party, I'll say it again. It's not a partisan issue in my mind. However, if you're going to get something done in this state right now, you should probably be a Republican.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Okay, so just to reiterate, it was February of 2022 when we found out about the Turnpike, and since February 2022, the Republican Party has been the majority party and is yet to really move on any legislation to help with that. So the OTA, they're all about money. They're about creating debt that the taxpayers have to pay, that just puts money in the pockets of big developers and politicians, right? Why would this organization that is not elected choose to put in debt that taxpayers have to pay when we already have taxpayer money going to roads and highways? We already have an organization for that. The OTA is obsolete. There's absolutely no reason to continue doing that. And so what the state needs to do is encourage the city of Norman to pass ordinances against toll roads within its boundaries, pass zoning ordinance that restrict highway construction, pass regulations regarding protection of its waterways, and again, pass restrictions on the uses of eminent domain for profit entities. And then when the city of Norman does this, the state needs to back them up.
Okay, thank you. All right, Elizabeth, you're first on this one. This is a two-part question. How do you view the impact of divisive political rhetoric on public trust in government institutions and the democratic process? And in your opinion, what responsibility do elected officials have in ensuring that their language and messaging do not incite violence or hatred?
So this one is very, very interesting. When I first entered public service, it was in the middle of recalling 4 city council members and the mayor of Norman. And I walked into nothing but political rhetoric. And since then, the city of Norman has yet to try to repair and heal and try to come back together. And for 4 years, I tried to rally against that. I made public appeals all of the time, and all I could do was do the best that I could and represent my constituents. And so if you want to be an effective leader, you have to lead by example. And I never leaned into partisan politics. I never leaned into the rhetoric. And I think people are sick of that. As I've been on the doors, they are over it. They are sick of the hatred. They're sick of this. They are seeing very clearly now that when you straight party vote, that having an R next to your name has just guaranteed you a seat. So you get people like Ryan Walters and Kevin Stitt into the offices that we have, and then we see more inflamed rhetoric happening. We have to start looking at the character of the people that we elect and not just dependent on a party, because I think that's the most important thing. And so how to regain public trust is by starting, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You show it with your character. And for 4 years I did that, and I earned public trust. So you just do the work.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Well, I think that the respect you receive is the respect you earn, and that's also you earn trust by doing the right things. Respect is a two-way street, and I know that sometimes it goes both ways in both parties. Nationally, it's hard to get my head around when I see a debate. It's not what I want for America. It's not what I want for my children. So that's largely one of the reasons why I ran. This is a process. It's a little bit scary when you see two potential leaders duking it out on a national stage. So I have involved myself. I want to be part of the solution. And I take peace in knowing that I can be part of that solution. I can lead responsibly and be trustworthy, and I can do that with a grace and respect for others.
Okay, thank you. And Lisa, you're first on this one. This is also a two-part question. When faced with a conflict between your conscience and convictions and your party's leadership and your party leadership's direction, what will determine your course, and what topic or subject can you see that such a conflict might arise?
I will always vote for what is best for the state of Oklahoma. And I full well understand that the people that vote for me expect me to do that, and they're trusting me to do that. And I will do that. I don't care who tells me not to. I'm going to do it, and I'm not afraid to do it. Like a lot of people are when they get up there. They're deceived by money and power, and that's not me. I'm not that person. I am going to represent the taxpayers of Senate District 15 and do exactly what is right for the state of Oklahoma. That is my first priority.
Can you see, the second part of the question, do you see a topic or a subject where that conflict might arise?
You know, this is probably very naive to say. I don't right now, because I'm a pretty hard-headed person when it comes to doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I've been a business owner for almost 30 years. I've had to make a lot of hard decisions, and I pride myself in always doing what I felt was right. I have a strong family around me that supports me, and I thank them for that. I think that's the reason why that I am steadfast in what I believe is right.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, same question.
When I first got on city council in July of 2020, we were in the middle of a pandemic on top of the city of Norman, what they had just done with the police department. And during that time, we were Zooming our council meetings. And during that time, we would have people with assault rifles walking, pacing in front of our houses during meetings on the sidewalks because they're public property. Things got very, very scary, and there was always a lot of pressure put on us. But even in the face of that, I never wavered on doing the right thing. On both sides, I know that there's pressure. And in one night, I made both sides of the aisle very mad at me, and I was very proud about that. But going back to the Bearcat night, going into it, I had the power elite of Norman Democrats you know, you want to run for Senate, this is not going to be good for you. Like, it was very threatening, it was very scary. But my constituency demanded action, and I was not morally opposed to the Bearcat, what was proposed, and I knew it was the right thing to do. It took 2.5 hours to get a Bearcat there, to get these people evacuated. I am a failure as a representative if I do not protect my residents, and knowing what was coming, I did it, and that was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and mine ate me alive for the next 6 weeks. They've ruined the holidays for me, and I knew it was coming, but I did not waver. There's not a single topic that I could think of where my conscience and what is right would ever be on the line. I'm always going to do what is right, and I have always listened to my constituency.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, you're first on this one. Public libraries provide vital resources to our communities by bridging the digital divide, especially for low-income and rural populations. If elected, what steps will you take to ensure that public libraries have the funding and resources they need to meet the growing demands of their communities?
So I am a huge fan of public libraries, and I'm sure, as most of you know, in the city of Norman, our big new $40 million library is closed indefinitely. The earliest it will probably open again is 2027. It's probably going to take about $15 to $20 million to remediate and settle all the issues and reopen it, and that is devastating to me. When they cleared out enough mold, they suited us up and they took us through the library. And the day that they found the mold, everybody left. So there are bags of chips that were still open. It looked like the apocalypse happened, right? The rapture, everybody went up. And it was very sad to see all of these books, 3 floors just untouched, because families go there, children. This is where kids learn to read. They have programs where they can do things. People who don't have home internet, who are low income, they go there to get on the internet to apply for jobs. Public libraries touch the lives of so many people, and we need to protect this resource at all costs. So we need to make sure that we're funding them, and it's usually a municipal or county issue to fund them, but we need to make sure that these municipalities and counties are properly funding these libraries because they are so essential to your community.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, same question?
Yes, libraries are great for cities, especially those that may not have internet or resources. But does Norman need 2 libraries, 3 libraries? I'm not so sure. Do we need an east side and a west side? Is that money that could have been spent somewhere else, somewhere more efficiently? Maybe so. I don't care what the budget is. I'm going to look at it and make sure that we are using the funds appropriately. Our taxpayer funds are precious, and quite frankly, the more that we can save, the more that we can give back to those taxpayers. So right now, I'm seeing some libraries have drag queens coming in, talking to children. I think that's absolutely insane. It's not appropriate, and that's not something that I like my tax dollars paying for. So I'm always looking at every budget, not just libraries, for any program that could be improved and streamlined so that we can have the most efficient use of our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you. This is a 2-part question. If elected, how would you handle a situation where your personal beliefs conflict with the directives of your party leadership? And what specific issue? Well, this question has actually been answered already. I'm going to skip that. It was worded a different way. The next one. As you look ahead to what would be your first legislative session, what specific legislation do you hope to champion, and why is it important to you? And Lisa, I believe you're first.
Thank you. I believe that taxpayers are tired of paying money to the state. They're tired of paying money in. We need to keep and reward these taxpayers for the jobs that they have. And I would love to see the state of Oklahoma get on a path to 0 income tax. Will that come overnight? No. It will come in small bites. But I would be very proud as a legislator to have been a part of that, because right now I believe the state spends an enormous amount of money on programs that go unchecked. We need to go in there and look at those, see what can be cut, see what can be modified. Again, streamline the process for a taxpayer dollar. So that would be my very first agenda item that I would like to work on.
Okay. And Elizabeth, same question.
Okay, so the first two I'm going to say really fast because I think they should be self-explanatory, and then there's one that might need a little more explanation coming from local government. The first is to undo the tax credit, the parental choice, put the taxpayer money back into public schools. 65% of the people that applied for that, their household income is over $150,000. They don't need it. Give it back to public schools. Second, pay for breakfast and lunch for our students. Don't let them go hungry. Okay, so those are the first two. And then the last one, which is very important to me that I don't think a lot of people understand, is that the state of Oklahoma is the only state in the nation where municipalities do not get any budget revenue from property taxes. Municipalities are 100% dependent on sales tax revenue. So I was interviewed recently from someone about the grocery tax, and I said, well, if you're asking me as a state legislator, I might have one answer, but as a former council member, I have a completely different answer, because that's precious money that's being taken out of city budgets, right? That's public safety, that's safe roads, that's clean water. We need to change that law. Why we're the only state that does that, I do not understand. But we need to properly fund public safety, transportation, clean water in municipalities, and we need to make sure that changes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our questions from constituents. So to kind of wrap things up, what message do you want to leave with the voters today about your candidacy and your commitment to serving Oklahoma? And we'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Is this the last time
Yeah,
I'm
so
speaking for the night?
Kind of final,
Okay.
yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I give my thank yous to the Noble Public School Foundation and to the Noble Public Library for hosting this. This is amazing, and so thank you for allowing us to be here. For me, it's not complicated. I educated myself, I've put in the work, and I've done all the things necessary to be the best representative that I can. I had a message when I won my re-election for City Council in February of 2022 that said, I am an alt-right, Unite Norman, didn't vote for you the first time, very far-leaning Republican, but I broke my own personal rule and I voted for you because I saw what you did the last 2 years. You went against the grain, you didn't toe a party line, and you always did the right thing for your constituents. And I hear that on the doors all the time, who know me as a council member, and they know my character. That is what I'm leaving here. We cannot look at a party and straight vote, because when you do that, you get bad candidates in office. When we were more balanced in the state of Oklahoma in 2010, we were number 17 in the nation in education. We were top 20 with health and economics and everything else, and now we're in the bottom of everything. We're the 50th state for women. We're the worst. We're the 5th hungriest in children. We have a governor who's refusing money to help take care of our children. We have a state superintendent who's refusing to buy emergency asthma inhalers for our students. We cannot do that anymore. You have to look at the candidate and who you're voting for and their track record and their character and believe them when they tell you who they are.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Lisa?
Well, like I said, I'm from here. I was born and raised here in Noble. I moved all the way to Norman. I like it here. I plan to live in Cleveland County for the rest of my life. What happens here, it matters to me. And that's why I want to go and represent you in our state senate. Oklahoma is a wonderful, wonderful place. It has a wonderful potential in front of it. We have money. I think a lot of it is mismanaged. We need to get some people in there who are not afraid to take a good hard look and put some of that money back into the taxpayer's pocket. Again, I would appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that concludes our questions and answer. You guys, they have tables out out front. I'm assuming you're going to hang around for a few minutes maybe, and anybody that would like to go ask a question or follow up maybe on something that they heard tonight will be available for that. So
Yes,
thank you so much, both
Thank
of
you
you, for
so much.
coming, and thank you for your answers, and appreciate you, and but good luck to both of you. Are we taking a break quickly between? Okay, so we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in 4 or 5 minutes probably. Thank you very much, ladies.